Welcome into the Cougar Tailgate, where BYU fandom lives. Here's your host, Lauren McClain.
How's it going, everyone? And Happy New Year. It's officially 2022, and it's that time of year where we feel like we get a fresh start in life. We make several resolutions and goals that we're probably not going to keep, but hey, we do it anyway. And in honor of that, let's talk about what our fan resolutions are for 2022. And I'm talking mental, physical, and emotional. Later in the show, former BYU basketball and current radio color commentator Mark Durrant joins me to chat about his fan New Year's resolutions and WCC hoops. But first, with me now is the man who makes snow angels on the reg, Ben Bagley. How are we, Ben?
That's false, Lauren. I'm doing good. I have a long-standing New Year's resolution every year. That's not to go out in the snow.
Do you really hate the snow? I was going to ask you that.
I actually do. True story is earlier this morning I got a text from my bishop saying, hey, we need to set up a sledding event for the young men. I'm like, I'll set it up. You guys go.
I will not be attending. All right, Ben, the college football playoffs were yesterday. Did it hurt your heart a little seeing Cincinnati in the games and not BYU?
No, not at all. Cincinnati earned it. I mean, to complete an undefeated season, an undefeated regular season, is something that's not easy to do. And Alabama may make it look easy because they do it kind of on the reg, but it's not easy. I mean, there's so many different times that something could trip you up, and for them to accomplish it, hey, kudos to them. They earned it. They've done it almost 2 years in a row. They had a good season last year. They set the table for this year. Now enjoy.
Right. I think it would have been fun seeing BYU be the first non-P5 team to crack the playoffs, but super happy for Cincinnati and everything they've done this year, like you said, and I'm stoked for their fan base. And I love that they're having success just right before entering the new Big 12 with BYU as well. I think it'll strengthen the conference as a whole and give it more credibility from the beginning. Don't you think so, Ben?
Yeah, they're comrades now. I mean, you can't be mad at a comrade. I mean, with high tide, all boats rise. Lauren, come on.
That's true. Ben, let's switch gears a little bit to men's basketball because BYU men's hoops starts conference play next week, and the WCC is very good this year. It ain't no joke. San Francisco, Gonzaga, BYU, and St. Mary's all have just 3 losses or less. And I think the WCC is always competitive, but extends beyond the Zags, Cougs, and Gales this year. San Francisco has just 1 loss, although against Grand Canyon. Not the toughest schedule. But they did beat Arizona State by 1 in December. So, Ben, what are you most excited about when you think of conference play starting?
Unfortunately, the bottom teams are still pretty crappy, maybe even below crappy. But the fact that there's now more than just the top 3 teams makes it interesting, and that's what's going to be enjoyable. Like for the entire season to this point, these 4 teams have been projected bracket teams for the NCAA tournament by Joe Lunardi and others. So that's what's exciting. Let's see if the WCC can get 4 teams in, not just 2, which is usually where the bar is set, like, hey, that's a good season, we got 2 in. But if you can go from 2 to 4, that's impressive, and that's what you're excited for. Now the hope is, I mean, obviously the BYU should be playing tonight. Unfortunately, COVID cancels that. Let's see how the conference handles this COVID surge.
Yeah, COVID is making everything interesting. It has been for the last 2 years. We're sick of it, COVID. All right, leave us alone. We'll see what happens. Ben, do you think it's beneficial or not for BYU that the conference is a little bit stronger? Because I feel like BYU, obviously Gonzaga and St. Mary's are always the top 3. They're kind of the highlights of the conference. But now that the conference is a little bit stronger, BYU could possibly be buried a little bit. Do you think that it's beneficial or not for BYU that the conference is better?
I think it's a precursor to what the Big 12 is going to be like in a very small manner, because in the Big 12, they put, I think, off the top of my head, I think 7 or 8 teams into the NCAA tournament last year. And some of those teams were like just barely above 500. These are 14, 15-win teams. And normally for BYU, you got to get to 22. And that's not even guaranteed. So it's going to be a paradigm shift. Like, 1 loss isn't going to kill you. 2 losses isn't going to kill you, where in years past, you couldn't lose to a team not named Gonzaga. That's going to change this year a little bit. And that'll be nice. It gives you that little bit of a cushion for BYU fans.
Absolutely. Well, BYU's fan base is by far and away the best in the WCC. I don't think anyone would dispute that. I mean, the Marriott Center is by far the biggest venue in the WCC, but there are some good fan bases. Ben, and you've been around some of them. Besides BYU, what would you say is the best WCC basketball fan base?
The Zags. I mean, the winning. I mean, you go down to the tournament in Vegas, and it is all Zags all the time. Everywhere you turn, people wearing Bulldog stuff. You go to a restaurant, it's the majority of it's Bulldogs fans. You go walk through the casino, they're all Gonzaga fans. It's amazing the fact, like, we always talk about BYU fans traveling, and they do. BYU does well, but like it's the one venue I've ever seen BYU out-venued at a neutral site.
Well, when your team is that good year in and year out, why not?
Absolutely.
You can't lose. It's like Alabama. And Gonzaga is kind of like the Alabama of basketball, at least in the WCC.
And we joke about it, but maybe a little bit serious. It's all they got. They don't got football. They got a really good basketball team, so dive in and enjoy it.
No, very, very true. All right, Ben, it's time for our New Year's resolutions. They're not just any resolutions, though. We want our fan resolutions. And I know you love, more than anything, being a fan, Ben. And so usually our goals are categorized into physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We're going to skip the spiritual goal today. Yeah. We're going to skip that one because I don't want us both breaking into tears, singing some hymns. So we're just going to do the 3, physical, mental, and emotional. I'm going to go first. Here are mine. Number 1 is physical. I want to attend at least one home game of my favorite sports this year. And that doesn't sound that big of a deal, but I feel like I really have missed that the last couple of years due to COVID, having children. Wow. It's hard to get out. And so that is my goal this year. I want to attend one home game to each of my favorite sports. Mental. I just really want us all to be nicer to each other, Ben. I'm just kidding. A jab here and there is fun and fine. I love it between rivals and whatnot. But I feel like there was some serious hostility going around this year. And that's just really gross. So here's to a little kinder 2022. And I'm going to do my part in that. Number 3 for my emotional. I actually did a really great job this year of not letting myself lose like my whole, sense of everything after BYU loses. That used to happen to me when I was younger. But I feel like this year, it didn't affect the rest of my day and my week. I guarded my heart as we're counseled to do as missionaries. And I'm going to continue to do that this year. I'm going to be more emotionally stable as a fan because heaven knows we need more emotionally stable people in this world. So thank you. Those are my 3, Ben.
Now I need some clarification here, Lauren.
Okay.
Are these my goal? These my resolutions for me as a fan?
For you,
as a fan. Okay,
these are yours.
Ooh, this is tough. This is tough for me.
I know BYU's not your huge. You're not a big fan of BYU because you work for BYU, but I know you're a Raiders fan. I know you're a fan of the Jazz. So
I can go. Yes, I can go in as my sports fandom goes. Yes. Number 1, physically. Is to I don't want to go to games very much. That's what's hard for physically to get in better physical fandom shape. Like less curls of the snacks while I'm watching games at home. How's that?
I like that. Okay, we can go with that one.
Less snack curls, more actual curls.
It sounds boring though, because that's part of the funnest thing about watching a game.
I know, and it'll be hard, but that's what resolutions are supposed to be. That's what the resolutions are.
And like we talked about at the beginning, ones that you rarely keep. All right, number 2, go ahead.
Mentally. You know what? Mentally and emotionally, I'm going to tie these two together in 2 different ways. For me, mentally and emotionally, I want to enjoy games more and be less cynical and less negative in watching a game. I think that will help me both mentally and emotionally. But the other side of it is maybe my resolution, because we've talked about this on the show before, and you and I have talked about this. I've worked in sports for over 20 years, right? And at some point, fandom kind of gets beaten out of you.
Right.
I want to find my fandom again. I want to find it where I can just sit and enjoy it and be entertained by a game and not have to look at it from a critical eye or look at it from a cynical eye or look at it from this is my job. Like, I want to embrace fandom again. I want to find my fandom again. There you go.
Ben, I love that. I feel that from you. I'm proud of you. Let's make that happen. Let's make that one of the resolutions you actually keep. All right?
You started this whole segment saying, hey, these are things we never keep, right?
I wouldn't say never. I just feel like most people do them for a month or two, maybe. And then it's like, what were they again? Oh, well, let's move on.
So remind me, what were my 3 resolutions again?
Well, you combined the mental and emotional, which was sort of cheating, but we'll keep that.
Okay.
What was your physical? Less snacks?
Yeah, less
mental
snack
and emotional
curls.
was
Yes,
become more of a fan.
Yes.
Become more of an actual fan. And I love that. And there is a delicate balance because you have uber fans who treat these 18 to 21-year-old kids like they should be flawless and perfect and entertain them, to whatever end. That's too much. I feel like you just have to put things in perspective as a fan. Like you said, be entertained, have a good time, and then go on with your regular lives. But I don't know if all the fans will love hearing that, but it's just true.
That's right. That's why they're fans.
Yep, it is true, and I love it. I love the passionate fan bases. But here's to all of us being kinder, like I said, in 2022. All right, let's hear from a couple of you. Steve Preston said, eat at least 25 cougar tails over the course of all sports. That just sounds gross.
Sounds like something my son wants to do.
No, Steve, are you 14?
He loves going to events eating the cougar tails. That's his favorite thing about coming down to a BYU game. Dad, can we get a cougar tail?
It's kind of like going to the movie theater. 50% is for the movie and 50% is for the popcorn. For me.
Amen.
So that's probably how your son is. All right. S. Dotel said, this is a weird one, but stop multitasking and being in my phone while watching the games. I should put my phone down and just enjoy the games. Well, that cracked me up.
But you know what? There are times, and I won't say when, it was more specifically for me, but like sometimes the Twitter game is more entertaining than the actual game on the court or the field. like Twitter has made sports watching a lot of fun. So while I understand, and I probably agree a little bit, but like Twitter's fun during games if you follow the right people.
Yes, you can definitely get caught up in it and some of the stupid comments that are said, but yes, there's some really entertaining things. Thank you everyone who tweeted in, and Ben, thank you so much for being on with me today, my friend.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. All right, up next, the one and only Mark Durrant joins me to discuss the strength of the WCC and what he expects from the Cougs in 2022. This is Cougar Tailgate. Welcome back to Cougar Tailgate. I'm Lauren McClain. It's a new year and a clean beginning for BYU hoops with conference play starting this week. And joining me now to discuss BYU's odds in the WCC and New Year's resolutions is former BYU basketball player and now the radio color commentator for men's basketball alongside Greg Wrubell, Mark Durrant. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Of course, I'm thrilled to be on with you. I've admired you from afar. I think you do just tremendous work. And so this is a thrill for me to be on with you. And hopefully we were talking, we haven't I don't think met in person. We need to rectify that very soon.
Yes, we do.
But I'm excited to be on with you today.
Well, you are very, very kind, and I don't know why that hasn't happened yet, but we will make it happen soon. So speaking of broadcasting, though, how did you first get into broadcasting, Mark?
Well, I played back in the day. I'm an old man now, but the early 90s I played, and I was, I always loved being on the air after games with Paul James, the great Paul James, and Paul Ruffner, excuse me, and so I loved being on. I thought I did a good job when they'd have me on, and I think they had me on more than I deserved with the level of play that I had, just because I think I was a good interview. But eventually Paul retired, and Paul Ruffner retired as well at the same time. Greg took over, and Greg was looking for a color commentator buddy, sidekick for him, and he talked to some of my friends that were on the team, and they couldn't do it. And I said, hey, let Greg know, I'm around. I'd love to do it. It sounds fun to me. And Greg called me up. We went to lunch, and it was love at first sight. We hit it off, and it just had a great time together, and he said, "Let's do this," and that was 25 years ago. So it's been a great ride with Greg. He's just one of my favorite people in the entire world. You know, Greg. He's just a fantastic person, amazing broadcaster, just so prepared and so good at what he does. And I just try to just help him where I can. And it's sure been fun to have a front row seat of BYU sports for the past 25 years.
Well, how romantic is that? I love that. I love that
we
story.
have a special relationship, Greg and I. It's very deep.
Oh, I love it. Well, you guys are so fun to listen to. And I love that you said you were a good interview, so they interviewed you more than you maybe deserve. But there's truth to that. A good interviewer goes a long way when they're asking you, which guy do you want to interview? You're like, please give me one of them. Because as you know, it can be tough to interview some of these guys,
hard.
right?
It's hard for young men, especially. I mean, they're not used to it. Some are better than the others, and it's sometimes can be difficult when it's a one-word answer here and there. But we're happy to have them all on. They for the most part do an amazing job. But yeah, it's always easier to interview someone that maybe gives a little bit more information and can talk for a little while. But we love them all.
Absolutely. No, they're all fantastic. And you and Greg, like you said, been 25 years. What's been your favorite moment so far during your time color commentating alongside Greg Wrubell? Because you have been a part of some incredible games.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many. I just in general though, I think when we started, BYU was in a bad spot. It was just after the 1 in 25 year, and so it was actually kind of neat to see Coach Cleveland come in and build up that team and over the years get more successful and build the program into what it is now. And he was the start of that. And so it was kind of cool to see that from the beginning. And then of course the Jimmer years were phenomenal. That was just an exciting time watching him play, and the team was so good and made it to the Sweet 16 and all those good things. And that was pretty exciting. And I'm really excited about Coach Pope and what he's put together. He's just such a dynamic, wonderful person. And I think he's a tremendous recruiter. And now you talk about the Big 12, and it's just been a nice progression to see all this happen over the years. And I'm excited about what the future holds for BYU. But man, yeah, there's been a lot of exciting. I mean, I go back, Lauren, to my brother Devin played. And so I've been watching sports since, I guess, 1978, been watching BYU games. And I've probably seen as many BYU games as anybody out there, and watched my brother play. And then I played, and then I've been doing the radio for 25 years. So it's a big part of my life, but I love it. And it's just fun to see what BYU's done over the years.
Absolutely. It's going to be so fun to see them going to the Big 12, but they have the WCC for a couple more years. And that conference is stronger than it's been in years. 4 teams with 3 losses or less. Mark, when you think about conference play starting this coming week, what gets you most excited?
Well, I am excited that it's such a good conference. I mean, Gonzaga is always out there looming, the giant in the corner, but they're always tremendous. Of course, Holmgren's an exciting freshman, and Timmy and Nemhard. I mean, you go down the list. It's amazing what they can do every year to kind of retool. You think, well, surely they can't be as good this year because they lost these 3 NBA guys, and yet then they bring in 3 more. So what a credit to their program, and hopefully BYU can compete with them this year. And obviously they're always out there. But I really like San Francisco. Bouye and Shabazz are dynamic backcourt. They've been very good. St. Mary's, they got Fotu and Kuzi, and I mean they're always good. And it's just miserable playing those guys because they play hard, and they give you such a hard time. And then I think one of the surprise teams for me was Santa Clara. I think they're really good this year, and they got wins over Stanford and in Nevada and TCU. I mean, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I think you got 5 teams there that are really good. Obviously, Gonzaga is the cream of the crop, but I don't think it's going to be the walk in the park that they're used to in this conference, and they might actually lose a couple games.
Well, what's crazy is BYU, it's been Gonzaga, St. Mary's, BYU for years and years. There's rarely another team in the conversation. So BYU is one of the ones that usually shines. So do you think having a stronger conference is better or worse for BYU when it comes to entering the NCAA tournament?
Well, it makes it more dangerous, of course. If you lose a few games, that could put your tournament hopes in jeopardy. But with that said, if you win those games, then these are better teams, better tiered quadrant, whatever games
Right.
that the NCAA looks at. And so if you can win those games, that really helps you. It used to be that BYU would have to really overschedule in the preseason to have their strength of schedule, be worthy of a tournament bid. And they've done that again this year, and which is good. But now I think the conference will help them a little bit more in not kind of dropping back in that strength of schedule, because you've got a lot of good teams in this conference, and you can get good wins in conference. Whereas it used to be you had to get your good wins outside of conference, and maybe then, you obviously have Gonzaga and St. Mary's. But I think the conference, I mean, I've heard people talk about 3, maybe 4 bids for the conference, which is crazy. And it's always been 2, 3, maybe if St. Mary's and BYU are both good. But this conference is the real deal, and it's going to be a battle. But if you can find ways to win games, you're putting yourself in a nice spot.
Yes, and you don't have those losses that really, I mean, there are some at the bottom tier of the WCC that could still hurt you if you lose to, but that was always something that was hard for BYU, is kind of losing these teams they weren't supposed to. There's going to be fewer of those, which I think will be good. BYU's had some ups and downs so far this season, mostly ups, honestly, with some unexpected losses and injuries though. But what do you expect from BYU basketball in 2022? It's a brand new year, Mark. What do you expect from them?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me. I think this team is very good. I think Lucas and Barcelo are tremendous. I think, who isn't just excited off their chairs about Fousseyni Traore? I mean, he's just improving so much, and I think when it's all said and done, I mean, it's way down the road, but he's going to be an all-timer here at BYU. He's just got something about him. And I just think he's scratching the surface on what he can do. So he's exciting, and I think Trevin Nell is playing better, and Gideon George is starting to really play well. So, I mean, I think they're very good, but clearly those injuries hurt BYU with Gavin Baxter and Richard Harward. I mean, when you're talking about competing with the best teams in the country, you have to be able to match some of the players they have, especially in the paint. And it's harder to do without Gavin, who is a tremendous rim protector, really good on the pick and roll, good rebounder, really good defender. I mean, to me, he was the best defender on that team and was kind of the quarterback back there defensively. So you don't have him. It really hurt BYU. And of course, Richard's a big, strong body who could score in the post. So, I mean, that was a real difficult couple of weeks trying to figure out how they're going to move forward from those injuries. I think Coach Pope has kind of figured that out. He's, they're going to shoot the 3 more and hopefully better. And and I think they've got the rotations kind of figured out on how they want to do that, and keep Caleb at the 4 and Foose at the 5 and Atiki at the 5. So, I mean, that's a long-winded answer, but I think Coach Pope is in a good spot. But I don't think this team is a team that's just going to kind of run over people and blow out people. They're going to have to be in games and fight hard, but they've shown with this hard schedule and a 12-3 record, they've shown that they can do it. And that's really impressive, that what they've done given the circumstances against a very difficult schedule.
Definitely. I think they can be a gritty team, and no better leader than Mark Pope. Mark, we've focused on the fan experience during this show, and you've had to broadcast amidst some crazy fan bases in your time. What's been your all-time favorite fan base that you've come across that you can think of?
Well, obviously, I grew up in the conference with New Mexico and announced some games in New Mexico at the Pit. That's kind of a legendary place. Always fun to go down there. And of course, Utah, not so much now, but back in the day, there was a lot of excitement around their program, and it was always tough to play there. And Wyoming, I learned some new words at Wyoming, could definitely. I think the hardest place to play and the craziest fan base and the wildest fan base was at the Spectrum at Utah State, and that student section just goes nuts, and they're right on the floor, right on top of you, and man, it was tough to play there. It's tough to broadcast there. It's just they get excited about BYU, and they've had good teams that have beaten BYU. And man, that is just a wild place. So it may not have been the answer you expected, but definitely for me, in all the places I've been all over the country, it's the Aggies, man. For good or bad, it's the Aggies.
Yeah. Well, they're crazy. They get to know some deep, dark stories from your past, and they'll somehow bring them up during the game. Have they said anything to you, Mark, during a game before?
Well, the great thing about me was I was never really good enough to draw the ire of fans. One time I remember, for some reason, I played good against UTEP. And one time on the radio, we were listening to the radio down there, and they called me a name. It was I won't repeat it here, but it wasn't too bad. But I was so excited that a fan base actually noticed me enough to give me a nickname, a bad nickname. I was just thrilled about that. Yes, I did it. I played good enough to earn a nickname. But yeah, I mean, they didn't really pick on me enough. But man, some guys on our teams, it was just in the layup lines, it was just brutal. It was kind of funny too, and we never took it too seriously, but it was pretty brutal sometimes. And yeah, they like to, if they can find something about you or your past or whatever, they're gonna go after you. But you know, I'm mixed about it. I mean, I think it's fun. I love that fans are passionate. Also, you know, I mean, it's just a game, and these are young men. Let's try to be a little bit kinder out there. But I don't think that's going to change.
I love that message. Mark Durrant, former BYU basketball player and now the radio color commentator for men's basketball. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Absolutely. I've just loved it. And we need to meet very soon. A couple of great people like you and I and BYU fans, we need to meet and talk. But I do love all the stuff you do, and keep up the great work. I'm proud of you, and always happy to be on anytime you need me.
And that does it for us today. Thanks again to Mark Durrant and Ben Bagley for coming on the show with me. You can join the Cougar Tailgate virtually, of course, every Saturday at noon Mountain Time, or download, rate, and review our podcast on Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or on BYURadio.org. Happy New Year! This is Cougar Tailgate.